In my research, as a curator, which is a great thing about being a curator, you get to spend time with objects. So I didn't as much make a discovery as I made an observation. We took the piece out of the case and brought it to conservation and put it on the table and just looked at it, closed. And what we saw was that the architectural elements on the outside reveal some of the details on the inside niche. But the ones on the left work better with the architecture than the ones on the right. Then when we opened it up with that in mind, we saw that that panel that has sort of a less perfect marriage with the architecture also looks a little bit less refined in terms of the carving. And the drapery is more linear, it's a little bit shallower, you don't see the body of the figures in such a perfect way as you do through the other drapery, which is very sinuous and hangs beautifully and pools at the bottom of each composition. And it really made me start to think about what does that mean? Is this a later addition? Did this panel break at some point and get replaced? If that's the case, was it a medieval break and a medieval replacement, or a later break and a later replacement? After conversations with our conservator, Lisa Ellis, it became clear that it's very possible that this piece of ivory is from the same tusk as the rest of the ivory used in this polyptych, in which case it suggests it's very likely just a different carver in the same workshop as the rest of the piece was carved, which suggests there's two hands involved in carving this piece. But why just one panel with, 80% of the polyptych carved by another carver? And I would argue a more sophisticated, masterful carver. And that makes you ask a lot of questions. We know that polyptychs were made in large quantities for the market. They're not necessarily specialized, and they have always the same scenes. So it suggests maybe he had to move on to the next one, the master carver, the main carver, and he left the last panel to be carved by one of his pupils.
A piece like this is really fascinating since it was cut down from the single tusk, and we have these very thin sheets, and where they've been carved out, they're extremely thin, which means they're extremely sensitive to fluctuations in humidity. And as well as that, it has the mechanical joining of the hinges. These medieval ivories are absolutely incredible that they've survived for so long in such great shape. There have been small damages over time just by the opening and closing of the panels, and we can see there are little cracks near the hinges. Some of the hinges seem to have been replaced, and there is a very large repair around one of the hinges. So we would be very concerned about just how often it's opened and closed, and we take great care in opening and closing it to make sure that we're not putting any extra stress on those hinges.
As a curator who specializes in medieval art, partnership with a conservator is absolutely essential to the work that I do, because medieval objects are made of so many different materials. When in this case, for example, I make a stylistic observation, I can ask Lisa what that might mean. What are the implications of that? And she can tell me right away, hey, this could be from the same piece of ivory, which absolutely focuses my observation or my research.
So it's really based on the curator's questions that we start to look intensely at a work of art. Is this a special piece? Why? What is it about this piece that makes it special?
I absolutely couldn't function without her in an efficient or effective way.